is going to be the needle felted hedgehog, and this is kind of Valentine's Day themed, but if you want to do a hedgehog and put another little accessory on it, that would be fine. This can also be converted into a little holiday ornament if you put a little screw in there, or some other home decor. Even if you put a base on it, it could be like a little garden hedgehog. Okay, so I'm going to go over the materials that we're going to need for this project first. I always like to start off with a couple of pre-felted balls that can be purchased just as a pack of kind of mixed colors, and these can kind of come in different sizes. Usually you get one that's about an inch wide. You can also pre-make these just by getting a wad of wool and felting it together. So if you don't have those specifically, you can still use the roving that you have. The middle is kind of made up of any color and any color ball, and then the outside you can choose a variety of colors for the hedgehog. So this one kind of has a blend of 3 different colors: gray, brown, black. This is more of like a dark brown, so I'm going to be using this one for this example. And then you can also find some that are pre-made that have a little bit of a mixture to them. So this one has some threads of brown. If you want to blend your own, all you need to do is just grab a bunch of different colors that you want to blend together, and you can get some kind of a brush or a comb. They sell specific combs that you can use to kind of break these apart. I actually like using this dog brush, which I cleaned beforehand. And this is like a little comb that has like metal ridges, and so it's really good at like picking up the wool and blending it. So just so you guys can see how that works. A suede brush also works pretty well. So any kind of comb or brush will really help you to mix and blend the colors together that you want. Okay. All right. So again, I'm just going to be using this dark brown. Okay. For the face, I'm going to use this little caramel color brown, and I actually blended it with a little bit of a lighter color just to lighten it up a little bit. For the body, I'm going to use this kind of blushy color, and for the nose, I have just a tiny bit of black. For the pink, I have this hot pink color. Blush might also work too, so whichever kind of color heart you want to add. For the eyes, I have little glass eyes, and these again are sold as little packs. They have like a little glass ball on the top with a little metal prong. You can also find these in plastic. Either one will work for those. And this one is about 2 millimeters. A couple of other things that I might use. I have this little felted template for the heart. So it has a couple of different sizes on there. You can also use one of these little polymer cookie cutters to place the felt in there and shape the heart. Or you can make the heart by hand. I do use an awl to poke the wool and then place the eye. A couple of little snips. A 5-pronged needle felting tool with a safety guard on it. Okay, these are thin, small needles in here. And I also have one that's 3-pronged, so I'll alternate using those. And then the single one is really great for adding small details. For safety, you want to use some kind of leather covering for your hand, or you can also opt for something like this. A little silicone finger cover. Okay, I just don't like to use anything because it kind of gets in the way. But if you're concerned about that, use those. And then if you did, again, want to make it into some kind of keychain or something, you would need a little accessory to add and pop it in there. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with forming the inner core of the hedgehog. Okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get these 2 little wool balls, and using the wool that I don't mind, expending its color, I'm going to fill it in with this base color. So I'll kind of have a lot of this extra gray, so I'm going to just use a little bit of gray just to fill it in, since I don't really use gray for a lot of different projects. As my base, as kind of like my roving. Okay, so we want this to be kind of like a little round oval. So if you want to make your hedgehog a little bit more like a ball, then you would try to squeeze together the two felt balls and really smush it and then add a lot more on the outside. If you want yours to be more like an oval shape, then you would kind of keep it the way I'm doing it. Okay. So I'm just going to hold these together like this. Take some of my wool, place it right there in the middle. And I'm just going to start wrapping it a little bit. And with the needle tool, big one, you want to just start pressing into it so that the little wool starts hooking and latching onto the center ones. Okay. All right, so those are kind of packed down and attached there, so you can kind of see how it looks. If I were to try to pull it apart, you can see the little threads hooked into there. Okay, so that's all that needle felting is. You're taking the wool from the outside and you're kind of burying it into the inside. Okay, so that's kind of stuck on there. See, it's not going to fall off. And then I'm just going to keep wrapping it. Okay, I have an audience here. All right, so I wound it around a couple times and I'm still holding it pretty firm because I don't want those two little felt balls in the middle to be really loose. I want them to kind of like hold together. So I'm just going to go around the whole thing. And you can go pretty fast, but again, just be careful of your fingers. Make sure you don't poke yourself because these needles are very sharp and they are also barbed. So they will really, you know, if you poke yourself a little bit, it's not going to be too bad. But if you go any deeper than the barb, then it's really going to hurt. So be careful. And especially for this part, if you plan on going very fast and you feel like kind of reckless, wear your leather coverings. Okay, and of course, don't go too hard because then you might even still be able to poke through a little bit. Not enough to pierce, but enough to poke. So just kind of going at it here, not really too concerned. I am trying to switch the direction, so I'm going at an angle, I'm going in the center, I'm going up so that those two little felt balls kind of like hook together. Okay. You want to make sure you are using wool for the center. So if you find those little felt balls, sometimes like in craft stores, you might find them like on a garland or something. Sometimes those are filled in with like cotton or some other material. So just kind of check and make sure they're actually fully felt. Even if it's a synthetic felt, like, you know, like a polyester kind of felt fill, that should be okay. But as long as it doesn't feel like cotton, because then when you do it, you're gonna pull out those little cotton fibers and then it's gonna look like little white kind of dandruff all over the wool. So just keep an eye out for that. Okay. So after going around several times, you can see that I have this kind of covered. The two little wool balls in the center are not going to come apart if I kind of pull on them gently. And all my gray is packed on there. Okay. You can change the color, so if you want to make the body gray, you can. Actually, I don't think it would look bad with the brown on it, but okay. I'll just keep that. And then, so now I'm gonna, you know, I do want to smooth it out more, but I want to add the color that's going to be the main body color. So I'm actually going to use this wool. Okay, so this wool is going to cover the face and the body. So it's going to be like this round part in the front. You see it's starting to cover the gray in the background. There might be a couple spots that have the gray poking through, so just make sure you have enough of the color that you need for that. That's a little bit covered on the body. Do have a little bit extra in case I need to fill in some gaps, okay? Then I'm gonna go ahead and attach the wool that's gonna go on the back. So if I'm looking at this and I'm kind of dividing it in half, okay? More of the back, is gonna be coming up forward and it's gonna fill in like, maybe this is like 60% of the darker color and the rest, 40% would be the front creamy color. So you can kind of see how we're adding wool on the top and along the sides, but kind of going a little past the middle, okay? So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm just gonna place it gently where I think it's gonna go, and then using a finer needle tool, I can make some adjustments. Okay. This wool is a little bit dense, so I'm gonna stretch it out. And before you really get it tacked on there all the way, just kind of go around and add where you think it's gonna go all over, and then you can work on the details. So I'm just kind of tacking the whole thing onto the back. To separate the wool, you can just pull gently. Okay, the harder you pull, it's gonna like want to tear it, it's gonna be harder. So if you pull gently, it'll just loosen up those fibers. Some extra there. Have a couple little patches that I need to fill up. And I just want to make sure I'm covering the whole thing. It's fairly even as we go around. Okay. And then here I'm looking to see, making sure it kind of looks round, like a little bit of a ball on the back. Just because I feel like that's how hedgehogs look. Kind of can curl up and I don't know if they can roll away, but they can definitely curl up. Just checking, make sure I have no bald spots. Sure. Okay. You kind of get a sense of where it's all going. So it's going around this border here, around here. I think I could probably add a little bit more moving this up. So I'm gonna get kind of like a long strip. And I can even kind of twist it up just to smooth out the edges. Just a little bit. And place that there. Check it up on the bottom. So it's almost like you're building a little fluffy sculpture. All right. So we have the placement. So all I'm going to do now is just kind of double check, make sure it's all full, no gaps showing through the gray. And I'm just going to go ahead and felt the whole thing fairly softly because the back, I do want it to kind of look like it has that spiky little texture. I'm not going to worry about making it look actually making spikes, but I'm going to try to just leave it softer so it's kind of puffier. So the deeper you go in with your tool, the more compact it's going to become. Okay, so if you don't have a solid base on the inside, the core is too mushy and soft, then when you go around and do the details on the outside, it's going to collapse in on itself. So you want to make sure you spend some time building up that center core so it's kind of strong enough to keep taking all the little punching of the needles into it. So here I'm gonna just kind of add a little bit of this widow's peak on here. So I could go and soften up a little more, smooth it out, but I want to add this first just so I know where it's gonna go. So I'm gonna try to divide it right down the middle there. And then with the smaller needle tool, the single needle, I'm just gonna place it halfway so I can kind of divide up a little oval. I have like a little widow's peak, okay? And the rest is not quite, oops. Another thing is these are very brittle, so you have to be careful about how the direction that you poke them in. Need something to replace. Okay. So if you press in and you kind of twist it, then of course it's gonna be more likely to break. So some people feel more comfortable with a single needle on here, but of course, it's gonna take a lot longer. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're working this. And I'm going pretty fast here, so if you're working on this and you're adding all of this, I mean, it could take even like an hour just to get to this point if you're really kind of working at it and making it nice and smooth and kind of compact. Okay. So for the color of the face, I'm gonna just get a tiny bit of this brown. And on this one, I did blend it with another color, but I think it'll look fine like this. So it's really a small amount. So if you think about it in your hand, like if you're gripping it and kind of rolling it up, it really is just a small little wisp of it, okay? So try not to compact it too much for this step. And then I'm gonna just place very lightly here where I think it's gonna go. And I just wanna leave enough of it so that if I'm burying part of it into the wool, it's gonna not completely kind of disappear. So I'm gonna start with that amount and then I'm gonna be removing the extra as soon as I kind of know how much I need, okay? So I'm gonna start and just kind of generally tacking it down where I think the face is gonna go. So I think I'm gonna go around here a little oval. I'm gonna tack some of this down and you can see that there's quite a bit of extra. If we leave about maybe like not even a centimeter of space between the edge and the kind of side of the brown face. And keep it the same on this side, then we can kind of get it even in there. Okay. I'm adding this, tacking this down. And then with the little snips or the little scissors, you can just go in and kind of remove all this extra. So that way you're not putting too little or too much. You kind of see how much it's making as you go. So I'm just gonna fluff this in here. So I can see that I have enough here for the face. And if you want your hedgehog to have a nose that's like sticking up a little bit more, like a little snout, you can add a little bit more in the middle and have it kind of pop. On mine, I think I made it a little bit flat. Okay, so I like to use this little tool for the edges. And then this little medium 3-prong tool is great for like little medium size areas. I'm gonna use that. kind of place that, tack it down. That's our little oval for the middle of the face, very light, like very thin. And I'm also not too worried about it kind of fading into the edges a little. I'm not worried about it making like a straight edge. Okay. So that's the face. For the little arms and feet, okay, we want to start to kind of felt it before. So I'm going to get a small amount and kind of roll it up into like a little tube in my palm, just so I can get it kind of compacted, kind of get an idea of the shape and the size. I'm really kind of rolling it in here in my hand. Here. All right, so this looks like a little oval. And before I start putting it on there, I'm gonna just felt it on the pad and kind of felt it in on itself so it rolls up a little bit. Almost like making a little, like, looks like a little hot dog bun. Okay. And I'm making this kind of long enough, like longer than I even think I need. Like that's way, kind of a lot. So I'm trying to make a kind of like tube that I can use for like multiple appendages, like the little hands and the little feet or the little ears. And as I'm rolling it, it's wanting to stick onto the mat. So I'm just rolling it so it doesn't stick onto the mat as I'm felting it. I'm not going so deep in there that it's burying the needles. I'm just punching it very lightly so it doesn't go so deep. Okay, so I have that for my little tube. It's a little bit compact, okay? And then I'm gonna take a little bit of this and see, okay, how big does this little hand need to be? So it's just a tiny little hand. So I'm just gonna cut a little bit on one side. That's for one. And this needs to be felted a little bit more. One more time, the little hand on the other side. And then maybe even these two, we can just split them in half for the tiny little feet or the tiny little ears. We could for the ears, okay? And then with these little pieces, I can see how they'll attach here. So put one little tiny arm. And now that it's kind of felted on there, I don't have to worry about it, about how much I need, because I kind of have an amount there that's, you know, some of it's going to get shrunken down and go into the body, but mostly it's felted already, so we're not going to lose too much. Okay, so that, just really gently tacking it down there. I could probably keep going on that. The other side, probably take off a little bit. That's gonna go right there. I'm just placing it really. These two I think I'm gonna use for the ears, so I'm gonna put them right across from the face. Okay, and little feet. I'm probably gonna make another little set. Okay, so it's not perfectly made yet. I'm just kind of getting the idea of where they're all gonna go, making sure the placement is right. It's probably gonna be moved forward. And then I can go in and start to felt it and smooth it out with a little bit of the wider tools. Okay, so a little bit more. We'll work on the ears. Okay, so let me just show you guys how I would stick these little eyes in here. So it might seem like you can just kind of shove them in here, but it's much easier to do this with a little awl, or even if you have like a thin little nail. So I'm gonna go straight in, going about even like an inch. Okay, so that when we pull it out, we can see where the hole is and then immediately drop a little pin in there. Okay, and if you want to just secure it in there, make sure it really doesn't fall out like ever, you could just get a little bit of glue and put it in there so that the awl again is going pretty deep in there. And then I'm just placing the little glass eye. See, this one wasn't enough, so it kind of got stuck. We really want to get it as far in there so it doesn't resist when you put it in. Better. Okay. So 2 little beady eyes. And then I'm going to make a tiny little nose. This one you really want to get just a little wisp. Really roll it up tightly in a little ball in your fingers. And you might even still need to cut it down. So let's see. See, it's pretty big. So even if I cut it in half, it's like a little puff for a nose. And then again, probably half of it is going to be buried into the wool. So just consider that when you cut them. So it looks a little bit big, but again, as you compact it a little more, it's going to kind of shrink down. And then the heart, a couple ways we could do this. And this is kind of a big one. This is to make maybe a smaller heart or one of these. And so this one, I'm going to make a little blush colored heart just to make it different. And a small amount of felt. Place it on here. Even less. And I'm just placing it on the little mold. Trying to compact it a little bit. And I'm trying to just fill it into the edges. I'm not poking so deep into the mat because then it'll just end up sticking on there. So you may even want to like lift it up gently as you're working. We'll start to form in a little heart. Okay. I do recommend that you take it out, make sure it's not stuck on the back, and then also flip it so that you get the same definition in the back and in the front. And the edges a little bit. Okay. And then you can also snip any loose fibers around the edges. And I try to find this little corner in here, the top of the heart, just because I think that needs to be visible. Okay. And then we can take our little heart and place it on the body. Yeah. place it on the little body where you think it's gonna go. And all you have to do to tack it on there is just attach it a little bit to the hands. Times, and that'll kind of lightly adhere it. I can also go into the body and just attach a little bit of the body. The last thing I need to add is some tiny little feet. So again, I'm just going to roll up a little bit of a tube here. Feet are really small, so I'm going to make it really small. Feet on side. So at this point, you can just see everything is attached on here. So all I would do to kind of finish it off is smooth out everything, make sure everything's stuck on there. Probably I'll shape the ears a little bit better and then trim any extra like lines that are hanging off, okay? But overall, you have your finished little hedgehog here and it's ready to be given to your Valentine. Let me just show you guys how to make it into a keychain. So this is a little plastic attachment. And so using the awl, you would kind of poke a much wider hole in the top of it. And then with some glue, you could kind of just pry this in there, kind of screwing it onto there. It's a piece of plastic. And that'll just make a little attachment part for your keychain or your string or whatever you want to use to attach it. Okay. All right. There is our needle felted hedgehog.